Welcome to Flutespace, a platform created to show interesting stories related to life as a flutist and discovering inspiring content in form of a podcast. You can catch up with us on our Instagram at theflutespace, and you can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. All these links can be found in our link tree in the description. And if you want to support us, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/theflutespace, or you can join us on Patreon.
We all have different goals, and sometimes they depend on what are we surrounded by. Our guest has been always interested in folk music, and she decided to do a master in North folk music. We would like to introduce you to Inga and her inspiring experiences.
So, welcome to Flute Space, Inga. How are you? Thank you so much for being here and giving us time to talk to you about folk music and other things. It's really exciting because we know each other from when you did your master in Antwerp, and I haven't seen you since then. So this is really, really nice to see you again.
Maybe we could start with the Nordic Master in folk music. Which kind of program is that?
Yeah, I'm also very excited to talk about this. I'm very pleased that you give me the opportunity. And the Nordic Master in Folk Music is an exciting program, actually. We call it NOFO. It's organized between 4 different conservatories in the 4 different Nordic countries. Sibelius Academy in Helsinki, Finland, Syddansk Music Conservatorium in Esbjerg, Denmark, and then Royal Conservatorium of Stockholm in Sweden, and Ole Bull Academy in Voss, a little town in Norway. And as said, it's a unique artistic journey because it's mostly focused on the self-artistic growth and ensemble work while delving into these 4 different countries and learning the local traditions from the root and from the people. And we are somehow spoiled as students with the best teachers, which are known worldwide, and we can even select who is giving us instrumental lessons, which is quite a thing, depending on our own interest and demands, no? And in my case, I had the opportunity to receive lessons from great flutists from the Nordic folk panorama, such as Jonas Simonsson, Nina Weng, Mats Koller, Steinar Ofsdal, Mimi Lakunen, or other great musicians which are not flutist only, but from legendary bands like Rupa or Vesen and Dreamer Circus. So it's quite a big program.
Yeah.
Why did you how did you find it? Why did you apply actually? I guess because you like folk music.
Yeah, how did you find it?
Yeah, well, you know, because you know me from before, that I was doing this artistic project based upon the Nordic tradition and the Basque music and blah blah blah. And then when I came back from the master, the pandemic happened, and I was a little bit there was no orchestras, there was no auditions, there was anything to do. So I thought it was a good idea just to continue studying, no? Just to prolongate this student life, which is amazing. And so I just Google in the computer master in folk music. That's how I did it. And I didn't know anything about Nordic music. So I thought I knew a little bit, but now I know I was not aware of what it was actually. And so I applied for the audition, and I actually applied for all the conservatoriums because I didn't understand that I could apply only to one. So I just threw all the papers everywhere and did 4 different auditions and everything. And then, so it was throwing up video auditions everywhere. And then after the video audition, they selected the people they wanted. And normally it's no more than 6 students. So it's actually very exclusive. 6 students for 2 years is very little. And then, this audition was first the video and then the live audition, online, of course, because that was pandemic times. And then, we prepare a repertoire to play, and then we had to play to talk about it, like the pieces we were playing, blah blah. And then we were doing a sight reading, which was, I approached it as a classical musician, and probably I was not playing it in style. They were asking us to play it in style. Probably it was a polska. I didn't know what was a polska, so I did whatever in 3/4, and I'm very embarrassed, but I did it, and they liked it apparently. And then they had a little interview about our research project motivation and what do we want to do in the master. And I think it was also a warning about the journey, because it's a harsh journey mentally, because we are 6 students traveling all the time, every 6 months. So this, they were actually warning about it, and also wanting to know how we were as a musician in an ensemble, how we were working. How do we consider ourselves? Do you think you have some leadership? Do you feel like you follow better? Those kind of things that I think they are important for them to know, because the master is focused on ensemble playing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking into this Nordic Folk Master on their website, you can really see that every generation, it's a group, it's an ensemble. That it has a name. Yours one is called Timber, and how was that?
Yeah, I was wondering, like, how is the thing that you have to travel to another place in 6 months? Like, how do you mentally prepare for that? Because it's like you cannot do like your life in a place in a way,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very exciting in the beginning, and then you actually face the truth, and the truth is that when you get to know the people, and Nordic people, they have their own way of being. So it's actually, you need to break the walls, and when you manage to break the walls, you are already living, because it's already 6 months. So it's actually very, very hard to not be alone, especially when it's dark in the winter, which actually affects your emotions, no?
Yeah, and you have to get used to that as well. The changes. I mean, it's completely different climate than what maybe you were used to, coming from north of Spain, which for sure has more light than the north of Europe.
Well, actually, in the Basque Country, we don't have much light now that I'm again in the Basque Country. Now I remember what was every day is raining here, and so it's actually more similar to the Nordic than in the rest of Spain. We are not very lucky here.
Having semesters all in different places, countries even, how different are the schools and the countries?
Well, they are very different from each other, definitely. Like, Sweden has a very big institution, which is really focused on a detailed playing of a tradition, which is a big tradition in Sweden, like the polska. And of course, the department is very big, and there is a lot of students, and then you can learn a lot from your peers, and it's great to play with them. You learned a lot. While in S.2, for example, it's a smaller conservatorium, and but it has a different approach, and of course a different tradition, no? It's great to study in different schools, because then you see different teaching approaches, and you get a different inspiration from every way of teaching. You also learn how to teach, and of course, like, for example, S.2 is more based on the, I don't know, like Fano traditions and so on, which is an island in the west. And then on the other hand, we have a Sibelius Academy, which is in Helsinki, and it's more avant-garde kind of mentality about folk music, and it's really based on improvisation, like crazy improvisation. Like we have very much focused on that. We have even like a week where we go to a place called Kalliokuninkaala, which is lost in the forest, and it was in the winter, so it was very snowy and very beautiful. And then we spent that week there just doing improvisation, nothing related to specifically folk music, but then all those tools that we were using in that improvisation week, we were of course using it in folk music and making folk music develop somehow, because we are the young people studying there, we are using those for making traditional music. And then we finally go to Ollebul, where you find finally some calm in the mountains, and there is nobody in the school. Like students, they go once every month, and there is very little students, maybe 10, 15 as a maximum. And there we can just learn a little bit more about the new tradition again, and kind of private lessons always for us six. And yes, and more time to delve into our research and composing, and yeah, so it's great. It's very different approaches, as it's very rich to see all these different schools. It's like being in Erasmus all the time.
Yeah, and having just a semester adapting to that.
But I mean,
It's a
it's super
challenge.
well thought, actually. Like for developing a project and a research, in which actually the time is very. I mean, the way you manage the time is very important for that. And I think it's super cool that it's thought on that way, because, for example, as you said, in Sibelius Academy, it was more experimental. So it's a way of just jumping into the pool and just exploring what comes out from your mind.
And which you can use later in your research, I guess, because
Yeah.
of this kind of. You need to use all the time in one semester that you get.
And we were wondering also, like, from where does it come? Like, in which moment did you started to be interested
In folk music.
Yeah.
Well, folk music has been a leitmotif in my life all the time, parallel to my classical career. So it has always been there. And like I was listening to Irish music, of course, who doesn't? And I was very interested in all of these folk instruments, of course. But more specifically talking about Nordic music, I think I especially joined this program because I was interested in Nordic music because I wanted to know more about my father. He's from Iceland, so I wanted to know what was Icelandic music, and it was something that I was always asking myself, like, how is Icelandic folk music? And when I was asking my father, well, he was telling some things, but I was not pleased. I wanted to know more. And when I joined the program, I really wanted to know people who knew about Icelandic music. And well, I didn't find anybody. So it made me even more curious to know a little bit more. So I focused my research on that. No, so that's mostly what I was interested about, this Icelandic music, which is quite linked to my research that I did in the Nordic Master.
Speaking about your research in the Nordic Folk Master, how did this research look like, and how did you go about it if there was no expert on traditional Icelandic folk music?
That's a good question. So I did all my best to try to know people, to meet people who knew about the topic.
So how did it look like interviewing people? I mean, assuming that they were kind of people that know a lot about it, maybe they didn't speak English.
Yeah, well, they all speak English in the Nordic, unless they are very, very old. But even the old people, they know very well English, so that's actually very nice. And then I interview people who knew about the topic when I managed to find them. and also got to main sources of music, archives, sounding archives, and and try to read a lot about it. So I did a big research to find actually the information about Icelandic folk music, what it is, and what is the problematic between Icelandic being not independent from Denmark, and some Danish tradition influences the Icelandic tradition. And during my journey through the Nordics, I actually understood that Icelandic tradition is linked to the Nordic tradition, and many things are could be understood from the Nordic music that I was making in the Nordic Master. So that was a big thing for me, and that's how I developed this research, which was called an Icelandic translation for flute, from a flutist perspective. How can I understand something which is not a tradition which is not mine, because I was not born into it, so it's kind of a new language to me. And how do I made it my own language for my way of playing the flute, and through the folk music that I was learning during that time. And especially because I in the beginning I thought for what I was reading in the beginning through these online sources, I thought Icelandic music was only vocal. So when I approached it in the beginning, I was doing these experiments with language and music, and it was very interesting approach. And then after that, after meeting people in Iceland, I realized there was much more about instrumental music, and actually flute historically was part of a Icelandic tradition somehow. Even though it's a little bit hidden there, they claim that there were no instruments, so it's a really interesting process I had during my research.
I'm just curious, like which kind of flutes did they have?
Well, it is not it's not clear how they were playing music, like instrumental music. Of course, they know there were some violins in the 19th century, maybe 18th century. Flutes, there are some recollections about bone flutes, maybe, and some maybe overtone flutes, who knows. But of course, there is a picture about the expedition in the 19th century where there is a painting of a man who is playing the flute in the back, while others are dressed as Icelanders, no, the traditional costume. So we do know that there are some flutes in those periods of time. We don't know how they were playing those, and we don't know if they have more relationship with the Danish tradition. But well, there is a big argument between what is folk music in Iceland, and so it's a big topic. Everybody disagrees on it.
Like because of the roots of what it was influenced really by, and what is authentic or something.
Yeah. So this belongs to every person to decide how they are going to approach this, from a vocal perspective, from an instrumental perspective, a mixture.
I think that's something that happens like in every folk music. That is something that related to the roots, that at the end is very difficult to define, like what is folk music. I mean, I'm of course don't know as much as you, but the what I feel is that it's very difficult to to describe what is folk music, and also like because it's something very cultural, it's very related to the society. So
and if people change all the time, then folk music changes all the time. So there are so many influences constantly, and changes within it. So how do you define where is the start of folk music? And
this is also a big topic. There is no answer for this, actually. There are a lot of answers, and who knows which one is the right one. There is a lot of dissertations about what is folk music, and there is some kind of definition about folk music in the associations about folk music, which you can relate to. But it's always difficult because folk music is permeable to the other genres, and it's shaped by the people and by the context. So, for example, nowadays folk music cannot be as it was in the 18th century. It's shaped with electronic music. We are going more into these new concepts of neo-trad and neo influences from other genres. Of course, it's shaped by the others.
Yeah.
And well, relating to your research and the context which you were in, so you were in an ensemble, and how do you have to connect parts of your ensemble repertoire to your research? Is it something completely separate from that? How does that look like?
I mean, you can do as you please with your research project. It can be whatever, for sure. In my case, it was not linked, and in my colleague's case, anybody was linked to the ensemble.
And well, starting a completely new master in a completely new country with an ensemble, how did you collaborate, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, it's very curious because the ensemble working in the Nordic Master looks like a social experiment, because they mix you with people that you don't know from before, or maybe you know them a little bit, you don't know, no? In our case, we didn't know each other, and we were from many different countries, which was actually very unusual. Normally they are more Nordic countries. We were having people from Belgium, Austria, and Sweden and Spain, in my case. So it was kind of a mixture of nationalities and backgrounds, musical backgrounds. We had people from the jazz studies and folk studies and then classical music. So it was kind of funny to work together, and somehow music worked from the beginning, and then working together in ensemble is more like a democratic work. Like you have to decide all together how it's gonna be, and then you have to decide how it's going to be the method, because you cannot always bring an opinion and just work towards that. There is some selection of ideas. Then you have to also cope with your own feelings when working in an ensemble like that. You learn a lot about how to work with others, for sure, because anything is written also. Like we don't work with scores. Normally we can compose something and write it, but then we learn it by heart. So it's everything based on your taste somehow and your ear. So it's a lot of work. And yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's very difficult because, for example, like just for playing chamber music, you have to look for people like that
you get along with,
yeah,
that
you
at
can
least
work
have some
with them. Yeah.
same ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's already difficult. So imagine to compose together actually, and then just not using a score.
And especially, if you don't know each other, and then you have to kind of put your tastes all on one table and say, we have to agree on our tastes.
Yeah, like crazy.
Yeah, that's...
And did you have many concerts? Like, how was working with the ensemble? It was like more like a professional ensemble, let's say, or...
Yeah, it was definitely a professional ensemble. And we were also very spoiled and lucky, because they were organizing festivals, events for us to play and to practice, like big festivals. There was also like a convention with all the schools in the Nordics. We all gather, not only Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, but also Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, and then we get to play in front of them in a big concert, and we also learn from each other, and it's such a nice event. They also organized us many things like master classes. We had master classes with Dreamer Circus, for example, and many others that and with local traditions and people who is bringing the tradition of a place, and then we also go to investigate research conventions where we can not only hear other research, but also we can talk about those and give some conferences and lectures about it. And we also got the experience to go to Rauland University and have a little master class about ensemble playing for the students there in Rauland in Norway. So it was great. And then we got stuck in a tunnel for 12 hours. So it was very funny.
For 12 hours in a tunnel.
But I mean, if you think about it, this is crazy because like you are playing folk music for people from that place, so it's actually like performing Mozart concerto for Mozart. Like, if you think about it, it's crazy. Like, how do you feel as a Spanish person going to Norway, for example, to play their music?
Yeah, I think they are very open about it. Although there is some folk music police, there is always folk music police everywhere. But yeah, they call it like that. But in general, they are very open to foreigners to play their music. I think normally they are glad that you are playing their tradition. They feel very happy that you are interested about their music. And I always try to be respectful. And how do I understand being respectful to a tradition? Well, I normally try to read about the tradition beforehand and study as much as I can, and always make the reference to who you are learning it from and where does it come from, and have a little bit of knowledge about what you are playing. No, this is a little bit different from my approach when I was doing the project in Antwerp, that I was just playing the music from YouTube. So now it's like more. This is how I understand the respect, and this is a big issue I have always in my mind, how to really play the music in a nice way for people to like it and to feel this respect. No?
Yeah.
Kind of connecting to that, well, there's a particular kind of flute sound that each one of us kind of strives for, especially during the studies, to achieve. How did you approach sound then in your interpretations and in your research, and what performances of folk music?
I don't think I was, when I was playing classical music, I'm still playing classical music, but when I was studying in Antwerp, for example, I didn't, maybe it was more in the bachelor that I was looking for this clear sound, openness, and this technique and this sound. But it doesn't, it was not a big issue when I was in Antwerp. It was more about being loud or piano and having these dynamics maybe. So I think I was not so much focused on during my studies about having a specific sound, because I always felt like having different sound qualities, sound colors is a good thing, and every sounds are also a kind of color that we also use in the classical music. But when I went to study, the first stop was Sweden, and I had Jonas Simonsson, which is a legend in the flute world, in the folk music. And you listen to him, and it's a little bit different way of playing. And it's not only the color that is more hairy, it's the groove which makes the flute playing sounding like that. Of course, I think they always respect you, and you respect yourself having your own sound, which is based on your previous experiences, and it doesn't affect. It doesn't matter so much in folk music, I guess, that you have a specific color or sound. So I kind of play with what I hear from my teacher there, and try to get that groove in the sound, which is based on the Swift and the and the lifting of the sound or the air, I don't know, and my own approach to music.
So it's actually like, like in what do you focus whenever you play folk music? Because for us, I guess as classical trained musicians, like we focus a lot on sound and dynamics and so on. But for you, it's kind of a different approach whenever you play folk music. Like you are more focusing
on the groove.
Yeah.
Which actually makes sense to use that in classical music as well.
I mean,
yeah, it's just that I don't think a lot of the way we are taught is focused on that.
Yeah, maybe it's related to like the way we have like because we just play a score. Is everything written there? So the chances to change it or to produce something new are very little, actually. So
and if you're creating something completely new without a score, playing by heart, reacting to other sounds and phrases, did you then discover like, wow, I can do so many more things with flute, sound wise?
Well, yes, I discovered I could have the opportunity to do whatever I wanted with the sound, which was actually very nice for me. And everything was okay. Like I don't know, it's difficult to say because everything is not okay. It depends on your taste, and also like yes, we don't have scores in folk music, but we do have recordings, and we do learn from people. And normally we learn the songs by repeating and by learning by ear. Or in the jam sessions or whatever. So all this, there is some kind of cues of that are given already when you listen to this music, like the way they play and the way you copy this style and the way you understand it. It is different from the score approach, but it is still there.
Yeah, but I mean, it's super cool because it gives you like different skills that we don't develop really in classical music. Like for example, I imagine me going to a jam session and liking something from the flutist. I just writing it down, then to try it out if I like it or not.
That we don't rely so much on our ears.
Yeah.
Yeah. What folk music tool would you tell to classically trained musicians that they should use in their practice?
Well, as a classical trained musician and now a folk trained musician, I actually don't feel there are so many differences between classical and folk music. But I do think that classical music could be very much inspired from folk music by giving some freedom in the interpretation sometimes. Although performers, when playing classical music, we do have a range to do our things, our own perspective of the music. There is always a traditional way of playing, I don't know, Mozart concerto in G, no? So that's a thing that we do have a lot of classical police in the classical world. Yes, yes.
Police everywhere.
More than in the folk music.
No, it's true.
Sometimes.
It's true, and it's. I mean, it also kind of. There's also always a question of good and bad taste. And what is bad taste and what is kind of exploring why not go into this direction. I guess then you just have to be super brave and accept that I am doing it this way, and maybe people will say it's ugly and bad taste, but there's a reason that it exists. I don't know. I'm thinking of Mozart concerto in many different variations.
But yeah, at the end, I have the feeling that you have to create your own personality and your own way of playing.
Another tip for a classical musician to learn from folk music would be this enjoyment of the music. And not only play for concerts or for studying or for the teacher, just go and play with your friends at home and do whatever together, read some trios, flute trios, or have fun. That's something that I had when I was my family, they are musicians, so we normally in Christmas we usually make a party, a classical music party, or sometimes we just improvise and do random things. So it's actually this enjoyment of music, not being only in the concert hall, which is also important, and also to run away from the score and enjoy the harmonies in a different way rather than only written. And that's a way of understanding music even more deep. Just imagine playing the Mozart concerto and just play the chords with the flute while, I don't know, and change the piano is playing the melody and you are playing the chords with the flute and you do an improvisation. Then you must, you should learn a little bit more about it while doing that, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's very sad because we all start playing music because we like it, and then there is a moment in your like career or your studies in which you are just focusing like in your goals. So whenever you are playing or studying is for something else, like for an audition, for a concert, for whatever. And yeah, like we lose this uh, like this enjoy of no like this freedom that actually is the thing why we start playing music.
Yeah,
Right.
and not only that, we get obsessed. I mean, of course, we need to be obsessed with what we're doing, but we get obsessed over details. Not in the score, but just details that I need to sound this way without accepting, like, yeah, but this will come. But you need to, if you give yourself space to enjoy it, then it will come eventually anyway, because you're working on it.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean like folk music is just fun and having a good time playing whatever. Because I do think I want to run away from the top, like the typical saying of folk music is just playing whatever and having fun. Because I heard it so many times. And no, like in this education, we actually learn that folk music is just like another genre with different tools, different way of learning it, and different way of performing it. But yeah, so also folk music has a lot to learn from classical music as well. It's not only one way; it's both ways. I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And also, I don't know if you will share this on YouTube or somewhere, but there are some bits and pieces from your recital on your Instagram, and it was amazing to hear that because it sounds great. It sounds very difficult to do that, and that you've made your own arrangements and transcriptions, or that you've composed pieces yourself, based, well, probably on your research and with everything that you've learned.
Yeah, and also what I like is that it's actually very fresh whenever you
Yes.
listen to it. Like, I mean, for me, it's like it sounds difficult but fresh, and
And it's really inspiring. I mean, it's the kind of music that I don't really hear.
yeah, I'm just wondering, like, did you have to play some other instruments in the master, maybe?
So it's not a compulsory thing to do. You don't need to play other instruments. You can just apply it with to the master with instruments which are not originally traditional, which is a good thing. Then you open this world to more people than just um, instruments which are traditional. But I wanted to learn some instruments, and I went for the Overton flute, which is a willow flute. It's just a tube where you just play, and it sounds like the harmonics, and there's a specific scale for it, and then there is music which is specific to this instrument, and it's very nice. And then I also, well, before starting the master, I was very much into hardy-gardy. So I was playing also some hardy-gardy, but that was my own thing. And then when I was in Finland, I started playing a little bit of kantele, and they always want you to try other instruments a little bit, so that you can also know a little bit how is the tradition there. So yeah, so then I bought a kantele because it's very nice sound, and now I'm trying to play it. But it's in general you apply for playing in my case, the flute, the regular flute we call it, no, and it's fine. It's fair enough to play folk music.
And well, how do you create space for yourself that you still develop classical music and folk music?
Well, it's
the
very
same time?
difficult. That's a good question. I don't know how to find time for both because both are very demanding, as you know. Yeah, I try just to focus on one per time. Like one day I'm focused on the composing or playing these tunes, and next day I'm doing Mozart and things like that, because a day is not enough for everything in
Yeah.
one day. So
I'm thinking that actually, like, all your background, like, is super interesting, and for sure you had many new tools to teach and to, like, because I don't know, what I feel is that now that I worked on different countries, or I was studying in different countries, whenever I teach, I can give more things to the students. Um, um, so because you are teaching, um, do you use skills that you learned on folk music, or like how is your approach to teaching after all these studies and experiences?
it has changed a little bit. Yes, I noticed. Um, for example, I have two examples. First one is um, when I teach the kids, I sometimes use, since they don't know very much about reading the notes, and it's quite an issue for them, I use the oral transmission. No, for example, I was teaching the other day a kid jingle bells, because they know the song, but and they know more or less the notes, so of course they can learn that by ear. So I was teaching that, and she took it faster than reading it from a score. So it was very funny to see, and she was enjoying more because then we were playing with the notes. Then I play D and you play E, D, 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 and then we were having fun. So yeah, so I'm using those tools for oral teaching. And then the other example is that I have also like ensemble, like they are very young, but I'm teaching them some ensemble lessons, and I made them compose a song by themselves. Like we were having also like practice of instant composition, which is like everybody has 2 bars of music, and then you just play whatever comes through, and the first thing that comes through is 2 first bars, and then we learn those two bars, and then next person has to play 2 bars more, so then we have like 4 bars of a piece, and then that's everything, and then you cannot change your mind of those 2 bars. It has to be whatever it sounds. And it was very funny because they were feeling like they were actually composing, and they are very motivated about it. And they want to go on tour and blah blah blah. It's very funny.
Oh, that's so good that they give such a reaction. I mean, it's actually fun being incorporated, but it's thought of fun. So yeah. Well, if they want to go on tour, they have a great teacher, because you went on tours with different groups, mainly. Well, last summer, I think you went on a tour with Frender Music. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was a collaboration since the flutist, she has two little babies, and she cannot go. So they called me, and I was very happy about it. It was just while finishing my Nordic Master studies, so it was very chaotic because I was in 5 different countries in less than 3 months. So it was very chaotic. But it was very rewarding. I really enjoy going to Canada. We went to Ontario. We were in Toronto, Tiny. Then we went to Montreal for 1 day, and it was very nice. The tour a little bit stressing because we were having 15 days and 13 concerts, and no rehearsals in between. And then I was having a lot of, because the flute was having a lot of things to do, and I was having a lot of solos. And yeah, for me, improvising has been a latest thing since I'm classical trained, even though I was doing some improvisations on my own. But it's always hard. You need to get the language and the taste, especially, and the creativity and the inspiration in that moment. So just imagine playing in big festivals in a big place, surrounded by a lot of Canadians watching you. Everybody was sitting down in the grass, of course, and then and then you play in your solo, inspired in your trotul or whatever. It was very nice. It was very funny. Yes, and these people from Flender, they are so friendly. They are very nice people, and they do great music. Though they are very good. And now we are going in January. Now in January we are going to New York to just to a exposition, to a showcase. So that's gonna be great.
That's really exciting. And what other projects are you working on? What is keeping you busy?
Well, nowadays, I came back to Spain, and I'm a little bit sad that I cannot play with Nordic musicians, because there is nobody here in Spain which plays Nordic music. Of course, it's too far away, and the ones who play, well, maybe they don't dare to play. I don't know, and it's a different word. It's not so common here. There is no also folk music education as such as in the as I experienced. And nowadays I'm writing an article which I will publish in the Dickinson editorial about folk music education in Spain, and how it is how is the panorama, and how do they approach folk music here. And that is one of my aims, kind of bring my experience of the Nordic Master into in Spain, which really needs some kind of that. And not only for folk music, folk instruments, but also for other kind of instruments, and delve into this neo trad, and maybe do some kind of musical project for myself, playing some Basque music or Nordic music again, but this time better. And now I'm in contact, thanks to my research that I did in Iceland, which, by the way, was supported by Culture Point, Nordic Culture Point, I have to say. And so I met Atli Freyrsdóttir, which is ethnomusicologist, and he's a great dancer and a nice guy. And he and we are doing some kind of transcription of scores, Icelandic scores, maybe some kind of project, we don't know. So something is boiling there. And on the other hand, I want to bring timbre in Spain to show a little bit how it's this Nordic music. And I also have a duo with my boyfriend. He plays double bass, and we played this music we learned in the Nordics because he was also with me. So we are playing in a duo called Vidliv, and doing our own thing. And now the last thing I have is this flute piece, this trio flute piece I wrote. Well, I didn't wrote it. It was just recorded, but actually it's just I didn't write the score. I was giving them instructions, and I was teaching them the music by ear, of course, and it is based on rimur melodies, which is a type of song or vocal tradition in Iceland, quite related to poetry. And then, we played that. You heard the recording, very nice. But when I published it in the Instagram, there was a shop in London, which brought me to say, "Hey, can I publish this video?" Blah blah blah. And then some people ask for the score of the music, so maybe I will publish it in All Flutes in London. So that's very nice. Some people will get to play it, hopefully. So I'm very excited.
Oh, that's really exciting. Do you know when approximately that will happen?
When I finish transcribing it, because it's a madness, because it's improvised.
Inga, please. Please do it in the next week. No, kidding.
I wanna play it now.
I want to play it. Okay, so we will link a lot of these things in the description of this episode.
Oh wait, because Valerie is not here, I really want to say that now it's time for fire questions. And the first one is, what soundtrack would you choose for your life?
I'm actually prepared for this one. I knew. There is one song that has been accompanying me through all my life, and when I forget about it, something happens and it comes back, and it's not very well known. It's an Irish tune or Scottish, I don't know. And it's I knew it. I used to have it in this MP3, the little ones that were from other period of time, maybe others. And it's a song called Bonnie at Morn, and it's this one is by, like, the version is by Duncan Christopher, and it's very beautiful. It's just very melancholic. I like melancholic music. I'm very melancholic, so it really fits my life, but it's somehow happy also. I don't know. Both
Great.
things.
Well, which folk instrument is your favorite one?
Right now, because I might change, I think kantele is such a great instrument. It's just but you haven't heard it, but you need to hear it. It's just as simple as, like, it's like an harp, but then all the chords, like, no, all the strings, sorry, if you play them, they keep ringing, but they all mix very well together. So the harmonics and everything is just happily living together. And it's such a relaxing instrument that I just really like to play and meditate. It's just very meditative, and you cannot stop playing it. So I think it's the best one.
Okay, great. We'll have to search it.
And well, the last one is, which is the most unusual thing you keep in your bag?
The most unusual thing I keep in my bag? I have everything in my bag because I've been traveling for 2 years. And every time I was traveling, I was like, less things in my luggage. I don't want anything. So now I hate having things in my luggage. I just keep my flute, the computer, and the flute. They don't like each other. They don't fit well together in the bag. So there is little space for other things. I think the strangest thing is that I bought a bone flute in Turku, in Helsinki. No, Turku is in Finland. I bought a little bone flute in Turku with 5 holes, and it's amazing. But it always goes with my classical flute for some reason. It just fits very well in the back of the flute. So it comes with me. Even like if somebody sees a bone in my flute, they will think it's something strange. So in my bag, it doesn't fit.
Oh, this is a great answer.
Yeah.
If the flute and the computer don't work,
Yeah.
flute and the bone flute do. And I think that's very poetic. Well, thank you so much for talking to us and really going in depth with your research and sharing your knowledge about the folk music. It was really revelatory and really inspiring.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
You.
thank you.
Thank you so much.